Greetings all. Welcome back. You already saw the title. Let's get into it. Across every culture, every era, every form of storytelling, one figure refuses to disappear. The hero. From ancient clay tablets to modern comic books, we keep telling stories about extraordinary individuals who rise, fall, struggle, and change. But here's the real question. Why do we love heroes so much? Why do we keep returning to them even when we know they aren't, well, real? Or aren't they? Heroes are real, but the answer is not as simple as one might think. The answer is not power, it's not spectacle, and it's not just escapism. Those are some simple phrases some others may use. Heroes are myths. And myths exist because humans need them. A hero is not meant to be just some realistic human being. More often than not, heroes exaggerate strength. They compress morality. They turn inner struggles into visible battles. That's what myths do. A myth is not a lie. It's a symbolic truth, if you will. It answers questions that logic alone cannot. Heroes are how cultures ask, what does strength look like? How should power be used? How do we face suffering? Can a person actually change and become more than they actually are? And to answer those questions, cultures create heroes who stand for something. Heroes that stand up for others. Heroes that have strength that can rival the gods. Heroes that have the power and use it in many great ways. And heroes often changed according to the culture they belong to. Then different cultures create heroes who stand for different things. Let's look at 4 of them in this video. Let's start with number 1, Gilgamesh. Now, one of the oldest heroes ever written begins as a tyrant. Gilgamesh is powerful, arrogant, and reckless. He believes strength alone makes him great. At the beginning of the story of Gilgamesh, we find him as someone who clearly does not resemble a hero at all. True, he is described as mighty, is the mightiest among men, but he doesn't use his power the way you might expect a hero to. But eventually, throughout the course of the story, the Epic of Gilgamesh, we find him transforming and becoming someone who sort of deserves the title of hero, if you will. In the beginning, he believed strength alone would make him great, but then he loses his closest companion, and for the first time, Gilgamesh understands mortality. His journey isn't just about slaying monsters, even though he did a fair amount of that. It's about confronting the fact that he will die. This is why Gilgamesh matters. He represents the most ancient human fear, the fear of death and meaninglessness. By the end of his story, Gilgamesh doesn't become immortal. He becomes wise. And at the end, even though his body decays, the memory of him lives on. He becomes a great king, and his stories are then told for over 1,000 years after his death. Why do we love him? Because he tells us something uncomfortable but honest. You cannot escape death, but you can choose how you live. Heroes don't need to start noble. they need to start human. Growth is more powerful than perfection. And sometimes you don't need to outrun death. You just need to outlast it. You just have to stop running and embrace it, knowing that you lived life to your fullest. Our second hero is not exactly the powerhouse Gilgamesh was. He is Odysseus, the hero who fought to remain himself. Now, Odysseus isn't the strongest of heroes. He's survived many of his perils through his wit, intelligence, restraint, and endurance. Across his journey home, he is tempted repeatedly to forget his past, to abandon his responsibility, to live comfortably without consequence. His greatest threat is not monsters, it's losing his identity. Tell me, when is it that a man becomes a monster? Odysseus teaches us that heroism is sometimes about returning, not conquering. Throughout his journey, is faced with many perils and is forced to make the most difficult decisions, but he continues to try his best to remain himself. Despite all the dangers, the perils, the monsters, he fights on physically and mentally. Why do we love Odysseus so much? And it's not just because of the play, although it might be part of it. Because we recognize his struggle. Life constantly pressures us to compromise who we are, but Odysseus shows us that survival without identity is hollow. Staying alive means nothing if you forget yourself. A compelling story is tested not just physically but internally. It's always important to ask what would break this character's sense of self. And in life, it's always best to always ask ourselves, what is it that we ourselves are not willing to compromise about our own lives, about ourselves? And that is what Odysseus teaches us. Now, Odysseus was a great man, but now it's time to talk about a king. We all know him, we all love him. We all wished we could have pulled that blade out of that stone. Now we talk about King Arthur. Now, King Arthur is great, but he was not defined by conquest. He is defined by restraint. Arthur's power comes from legitimacy, justice, and moral leadership. His kingdom thrives when ideals are upheld and collapses when they are betrayed. Arthur represents a mythic question every society asks: who deserves to rule? Arthur is written down as one of the greatest kings to ever live, because power without ethics frightens us. Arthur reassures us that leadership should be grounded in values, not ambition. Authority must be earned and constantly upheld. That is the only way that we are able to keep our leaders in check. Leadership is not just about dominance. It is about wisdom, courage, and accountability. Heroes can represent systems, not just individuals. A hero's fall is often more revealing than their victory, but those heroes that always seek to do better and uphold their responsibility always live on. Speaking of always withholding their responsibility, let's talk about the Man of Steel, Superman. Is that a bird? Is that a plane? You already know who it is. It's Clark Kent. Superman is modern mythology at its purest. He has the power to dominate the world in mere moments. but he doesn't. He has the power to end every single life with a glare, but he doesn't. He has the power to cause natural disasters with a sweep movement of his hand, but he doesn't. His heroism is not his strength. Though impressive, that's not what we know Superman. That's not Superman. It's his self-control. Superman exists to answer a terrifying question. What if someone had absolute power? Is it that power corrupts absolutely? No, but the difference between Superman and others is that what if that person, instead of becoming a tyrant, they choose kindness? Now, because he proves corruption is inevitable, many would think it's unrealistic. I mean, others will look at our own world and say, oh, that never happens. Everyone who regains power, it becomes absolutely terrible. Well, what if power doesn't just corrupt absolutely, but it reveals who one truly is? Superman represents hope without ignorance, goodness without naivety. Others will look at his exploits and say, oh, the typical Boy Scout, without looking at the other possibility. What if others took his example? The most interesting heroes are not defined by what they can do, but what they refuse to do. And Superman could become a tyrant, but he chooses to become a hero, time and time again. Now, after our 4 hero examples, we now ask the question, why do heroes endure? These heroes come from different cultures, eras, and genres, yet they all serve the same purpose. They transform, they turn fear into meaning, power into responsibility, and suffering into growth. Heroes show us that darkness exists, temptation is real, failure is inevitable, and still choice matters. This is why heroes survive every age. They do not promise victory, they promise possibility. We love heroes not because they are perfect. We love them because they struggle, fail, doubt, and yet they choose anyway. They choose to get back up. They show us power does not have to be corrupt. Identity can be preserved. Values can survive pressure. People can become better. And in a world that often feels cynical, that reminder is extremely essential. Heroes are not escapees from reality. They are guides through it. And that, my dear friend, is the end of it. Now I want you all to ask this one question. Who will you choose to be? You can take your time to think about that as you like and subscribe. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Bye.